Right here. I got a book. It's called Genderqueer.
Tim, homie, these are straight cis people. These are actual groomers. You can't start this segment about being like, so apparently some people in the media are going to say that I equate all LGBTQ plus people with pedophiles or groomers. I'm not. Okay, so here's an article about a whole bunch of actual pedophiles and groomers. Okay, you got that going? All right, and here's my prop. Genderqueer.
I got no issue with the queer people involved in that book.
Why are you holding and bringing it out as a prop in a segment where you have a news article about a whole bunch of child rapists? I got nothing against the queers. Anyways, do I have the article on all the child rapists? Yep, okay, that's up on screen. Hey, look, queers. Anyways, I got nothing against those queers. Back to the groomers. I've been covering Tim Pool for a long time. Very long time professionally. So much so that Jose, the YouTube channel, just interviewed me and Mildred to ask questions about Tim Pool and just what you've seen in terms of his evolution over the years. Make no question about it, Tim Pool has the most successful and, let's just say, grandiose, large in size, online video network, YouTube network, if you will, that probably parades the most recognizable cast of white supremacists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis, neo-reactionaries, alt-right, and far-right extremists on a regular basis. And he has been taking a very, very strong stance towards being anti-LGBTQ lately, as have most of the far right globally, make no mistake. But Tim Pool seems to really be trying to position himself at the front of that. He was just photographed with the hate group Gays Against Groomers, holding one of their pins. He has made a number of horrifying videos. One of the most recent ones, of course, was the one in which he blamed the mother who had a trans son and blamed the son's unaliving of himself on the mother's affirmation of his gender, which is probably one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen Tim Pool say and or think. And he has been on a nonstop fucking crusade ever since then. After the Colorado shooting, Tim Pool was one of the biggest names who was tweeting out things like, well, you hosted a grooming event. What did you think was going to happen? People were asking for a wood chipper. What did you expect? That kind of fucked up shit. Really, really dark, really grim. He's completely gone off the deep end. So Tim Pool is basically at the forefront of an extremist hate movement. And it's important to recognize that, because I know when I say a lot of things like that, there's obviously people, usually within liberal circles, who are like, oh, Lance, you're always saying that everything you see is a Nazi. Just Nazi this, Nazi that. I'm not calling him a Nazi. I'm saying that he's very specifically pushing very far-right anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric on a very large platform on a regular basis, and usually saying and or making statements in the affirmative of far more extreme than mainstream right-wing conservative talking points. While there is certainly a targeting of anti-LGBTQ plus people on the right, not only in the United States but globally, no question about that, Tim Pool is trying to mainstream and or push rhetoric that is even more extreme than the stuff that you were seeing on Fox News late at night.
A disturbing report has come out from the Chicago Board of Education about the systematic grooming and abuse of children. Now, the story that is on the screen currently is not that story. I want to give you a few moments before we get into the darker element of what's been going on and
what's going on here. Sure, all of you can figure it out. The name of this video, new report exposes massive grooming scandal in public school. Hundreds of kids abused by teachers. So I've got an article that's talking about the systemic abuse in schools, which, guess what, is real and horrifying. And also, guess what, it's committed by cis people. Yes, statistically, overwhelmingly, yeah, cis teachers abusing children. That's what's going on. And yes, the stats speak for themselves. But if we're going to talk about that, I have to push my agenda, my anti-LGBTQ plus agenda. Now, if you're a coward and you wear a beanie, how do you go about that without directly saying, hey, I want to label all these people as groomers and pedophiles? Well, why don't I take you on a journey? We're going to get there, okay? I got a lot of tabs to get through, but we're going to start by saying, because you clicked on my link, new report exposes massive grooming scandal in public schools, hundreds of kids abused by teachers. Now, before we get there, this story that you see on screen is not related to what I've just said out loud, but we're here, right? I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of stories about things related to LGBTQ plus issues, and then we're going to get to the child rape. But I'm going to lead you down that path.
It's being exposed. And I want to just briefly highlight the cultural elements that are allowing such a thing to occur. And that's why I'm...
See, how do we tie these together? Well, there are cultural elements that I'm going to demonstrate to you now. Right now, I'm going to connect the dots for you, okay? Queer, and then we're going to get to the child abuse. And then you can connect them along the way. So you see what we're doing together. These are cultural elements that are allowing the systemic child abuse to take place.
Highlighting a story from the Post-Millennial about a trans activist getting a woman fired. I was talking to one of my skate buddies, and they were just saying they don't want to speak out. You know, they don't mind saying some things, but they don't want to get political. It's not them. It's not what they do. They're not interested in talking about these things. And I said to them, listen, dude, I said to him, my guy, there are children today that are skateboarders, and they don't hear a word from you about what you believe in, who you support, who you vote for, what you want for this world. But I'll tell you who they are hearing from: the groomers in their schools and the abusers. Now, the reason why people don't want to speak...
Again, well, this is up here. Again, we're going to tie this all together. Abusers and groomers. Yeah. You know, trans people.
Up is exactly the story. They don't want to get fired. They want to risk their lives. And that's what the groomers want. Now, of course, to clarify for the segment, when I'm talking about groomers, the media may lie and say, I'm just simply...
Wait, we're not talking about groomers? Do you realize how you just phrased that? I know what you're trying to say, but I think you misspoke.
Schools and the abusers. Now, the reason why people don't want to speak up is exactly the story. They don't want to get fired. They want to risk their lives. And that's what the groomers want. Now, of course, to clarify for the segment, when I'm talking about groomers, the media may lie and say, I'm just simply talking about LGBTQ people, when I'm not. I'm quite literally only referring to people who are targeting children to groom them. They
to coerce them into having a sexual relationship with them, right? That's because, like, you've tried defining what you think grooming is multiple times, and you don't know the definition. Like, I know that now because I've seen you try to define it multiple times. Coercing children into activities that may or may not be done by adults, and it's like, no, because by that definition, playing soccer with your kids is grooming. Playing a musical instrument with your kids is grooming. Watching a movie with your kids is grooming. Did you realize how asinine that is? Why, like, there's no utility to the word anymore if we treat it like that. Because I know that you consider LGBTQ plus things to all be, by definition, adult activities. I know that already. So this is your way of getting there. And then you do this little the cover up afterwards, where it's like, oh no, I'm not, hey, oof. I'm not talking about all LGBTQ plus people. I am going to tell you about a story that exposes massive grooming as in actual events of child rape. Now, how far into this video do we have to wait till we get to that? Is this it? No. So this is 23 minutes into a 32-minute video. Now we're talking about people bashing Christians. Still not there. We're at 27 minutes. We're at 28 minutes. 29 minutes. We're almost there. Dropping it on us. Oh, there it is. So at 31 minutes of a 32-minute video in 50 seconds, 31 minutes and 6 seconds, he finally gets to it. Inspector report found hundreds of Chicago teachers allegedly sexually groomed and raped students. So he does that once he gets, again, to the 31 mark. But this is, once again, this is based in reality, being done by straight cis people. Yeah, straight cis people. It is happening in schools. It's a huge problem, something that should be spoken about. It's not, by definition, LGBTQ plus people. But again, if you watch a video called New Report Exposes Massive Grooming Scandal, of which Tim Pool said, hey, I'm not saying all LGBTQ plus people. We're here to talk about groomers. You don't get to the actual story of grooming and rape until we get to 31 minutes of the 32-minute video. Along the way, what do we talk about? First, we talk about the trans activist getting the woman fired from the video game company. We got there. What that has to do directly with this, I'm not entirely sure. Oh, sorry, he brings it up here. Let's get to this.
It's tough. It's tough, and it's going to piss off a lot of people. I mean, you are going to read this, and you are going to say, I am very, I'm mad about this. This is why we need you to speak up. This is why I'm willing to go and stand and announce my presence and say, look, I'm here, dude. You got beef? I don't know you. I don't care. We cannot allow this grooming and this manipulation of children to persist. The story from the Daily Caller. Inspector report found hundreds of Chicago teachers allegedly sexually groomed and raped students. Chicago Board of Education's Office of Inspector General. Annual report found hundreds of Chicago public schools teachers were accused of adult-to-student sexual misconduct in the 21 to 22 school year. The OIG's Sexual Allegation Unit opened 447 cases investigating teachers for allegedly grooming, assaulting, or raping CPS students last school year, following the 325 opened in 2021. Of the open cases, the SAU closed 600 over the past 12 months, according to the OIG annual report reported by Chicago City Wire. SAU investigated a Chicago high school substitute teacher for grooming several students for sex and engaging in acts with them, with at least one on school property, the OIG found. The CPS teacher allegedly talked to students about their sex lives in person and through social media, cell phones, and other common grooming techniques. Whoa, 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 whoa. According to the OIG, you mean talking to students about their sex lives is grooming?
When they are trying to coerce them into a sexual relationship with them. Yes, Tim. Yes, that is what grooming is. You are reading an article by groomers who groom children. And guess what? Again, statistically, overwhelmingly, almost all of them, straight cis people grooming kids. It is a problem. It is something that happens. This is totally different than if Libs of TikTok is like, hey, look at this. There's a teacher and the teacher says that they use they, them pronouns. That's not discussing having sex with kids. Those are two very different things. You can't just be like, whoa, but I was told that this thing apparently is wholesome and this thing apparently is an abomination. What are you telling me here?
I was told that's just claiming that gay people exist.
Nope. Nope, these are two separate things. This is a whole bunch of child rapists grooming kids by trying to solicit sexual relationships with them. And it's a massive problem. The other one is gay people being like, I exist. Different things are very different.
The report stated the teachers gave the student unnecessary passes to exclude her from class and encouraging students to confide in him about personal problems. SAU claims he made intimate physical contact with students, including kisses, hugs, back rubs, openly solicited acts such as kissing a student to recruit another student for a...
Yeah, horrifying. Sounds like a fucking pedo. Sounds like a person who should be locked up. What does this have to do with gay people? What does this have to do with LGBTQ plus people?
Multiple
These are straight cis people.
party endeavor. SAU...
And even seeing this, by the way, I'm not like, well, you know what, everybody? I think based on this report, we need to lock every single straight cis person up until we find out what's going on with these straight cis people. Because at the end of the day, the straight cis, they seem to be doing all the grooming. All the groomers seem to be straight cis people. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, speaks for itself.
Reported the JROTC staff member and the students exchanged hundreds of text messages that were overtly sexual, including, I'm ready to F. I'm not going to be gentle either. Chicago Police Department arrested the JROTC staff member and charged him with 8 counts of criminal assault and 1 of aggravated criminal abuse, according to the report. Several of the open cases involving CPS-affiliated adults exposing students to pornographic images included one high school teacher who accessed porn while he was sharing his screen with minor students. Let me do this. Right here. I got a book. It's called Genderqueer.
Tim, homie, these are straight cis people. These are actual groomers. You can't start this segment about being like, so apparently some people in the media are going to say that I equate all LGBTQ plus people with pedophiles or groomers. I'm not. Okay, so here's an article about a whole bunch of actual pedophiles and groomers. Okay, got that going. All right, here's my prop. Genderqueer. You know the book. It's the book with the porn in it. The one that they tried to show the kids all the porn. You've seen the page. I can't show it on screen, obviously, because it's the porno. Again, as someone who both owns Genderqueer and has read Genderqueer, it's a coming-of-age story about an individual who is asexual. Yeah, asexual. It's a self-discovery book about asexuality. The person in the book does not enjoy the sequence that is used by every right-winger to show about how scary this information is. Yep.
I got no issue with the queer people involved in that book.
Why are you holding and bringing it out as a prop in a segment where you have a news article about a whole bunch of child rapists? I got nothing against the queers. Anyways, do I have the article on all the child rapists? Yep, okay, that's up on screen. Hey, look, queers. Anyways, I got nothing against those queers. Back to the groomers.
Look, I have an issue with the behaviors they've engaged in, such as the pushing of...
What behaviors? Have you read the book? Have you opened it? Or have you seen the one picture and be like, oh, God, yeah. The book is not about pushing hardcore sexual acts upon kids or about teaching kids about hardcore sexual acts. It's about one person's journey to discover their own asexuality as well as being a non-binary individual. That's the story. That's the story of the book. It's a coming-of-age story. Yes.
This book on children, which includes pornographic images. That's it. I don't care that Maya Kobabe is non-binary. Live your life, man. Be free. Be happy. No problems.
Not a man. Also, that one image, which is, again, I thought it was showing a scene of fellatio, because I'd only seen those, single frames that every single right-winger puts when they bring up one of those plaques, like, look at the porn that they're showing the children. This is an act of which I would never ask my wife to perform on me. It turns out that was actually a synthetic or a prop, a dildo, if you will, that has been used in that scene. And even then, it is done between two individuals who are trying to discover themselves, and one of them recognizes that they don't enjoy sexual physical acts, and that's part with another individual. That's part of the story. Yeah, again, it's a lot less scary once you've actually read the book.
Dave Rubin gets a lot of flack because he adopted some kids. People on the right are criticizing him. I like Dave Rubin, and I think I hear a lot of criticism of the guy, and it gives me pause. I hear these things and I'm like, did Dave really do that? Did Dave really say that? And then you sit down and talk with the guy and you're like, screw the haters, man. Dave's legit. I like Dave Rubin. I know nobody's perfect.
Wait, did you just do the good gay? Why bring any of that up? Again, he just peppered in the good gay in the middle of all that. Like, I don't hate all the gays. There's a couple good ones, right? Dave Rubin, everyone's like, he's kind of queer. And I'm like, kind of queer? Ew. But then, like, I talk to him and, like, I don't know. It seems pretty normal to me.
But Dave's got some kids and he's gay married. And you know what? I'm glad he has kids. Because
he's married. Are you 12? Do you introduce him as your gay friend? Oh, this is gay Dave. It's like, oh, just Dave is fine, honestly.
Because those kids are going to be raised by someone who knows what the F they're talking about. For all the criticisms you could say of Dave, for all the things you think he gets wrong, that's fine. But he's a classically liberal guy who at the very least is pushing back on the wokeness. And this means that we can...
Classically liberal guy pushing back on the wokeness. Well, thank you. It's good someone is, finally. Low-key Fox, thanks for the tier 1.
Have diversity in the true sense. This means that we can have good people, LGBTQ or otherwise. It's not about...
We can have diversity if you allow it. That's what you're doing, Tim. No, we can totally have diversity. As long as they're the ones I like, the gays that aren't too gay, that don't remind you they're gay. You don't even really know they're gay until at the end of the day, he's like, oh yeah, I'm gay. And then you're like, oh, gross, ew, bum stuff. But like, as long as they don't remind you of that, you don't have to think about those kind of things, and it's awesome for me. Yeah, I love it. Life is good.
That, but I'll put it simply. I think Dave's gonna be a good dad, and I want to stress that point because we need more people of good ideas who believe.
So in his fucking brutal ass hate sequence that he's doing here, and this is just hate speech straight up, being like, hey, here's a story about a whole bunch of like literal pedophiles and child rapists. I'm gonna put this on screen. Then I'm gonna be like, oh, by the way, yeah, here, queer people. Why would I bring that up? I don't hate queer people. Dave Rubin, one of the good ones, gay married. I tolerate him. We could have true diversity. You've still got this article up here, by the way, while you're talking about this. It's like the line, hundreds of text messages were overtly sexual, including, I'm ready to fuck right now. It's not going to be gentle either. Chicago Police Department arrested the staff member charged with 8 counts of criminal sexual assault. This is all up on screen while he's still doing this. And still, like, you couldn't even, cut to this. I'm like, by the way, I just want to talk about, Dave Rubin. Gets a bad rap. Really nice guy. Met him before, he's gay married. He's got, a gay husband who he's gay with. And at the end of the day, maybe I'm better than most, I mean, some people on the right might not accept any of that. I think it's okay. Just as long as he doesn't remind me. As long as he doesn't tell me he's gay and like makes me think about it, or I have to picture gay stuff or think that gay stuff exists, I'm totally fine being like in a certain proximity next to him. But no, you have to keep it like this, where it's just like all this shit's still on screen.
And responsibility, meritocracy, and all those things, individual liberties, to be raising kids. And some people on the right don't like it because they don't want kids raised around this stuff or introduced to it. I think parents can decide what they think is appropriate for their kids, and that has varying degrees. The issue with the schools, the teachers are hiding it from parents. They're grooming the kids by showing them pornographic materials. They're putting...
What are you saying right now? So you're just like, okay, so the good gay, in this case, Dave Rubin, you're like, oh, it's totally cool because he's one of the good ones. He talks about meritocracy, all that kind of stuff. He's going to teach them the good things. Parents can decide whether or not their children are around it. By it, I mean the gay. So as long as Dave Rubin doesn't ever bring up the gay, which is just inherently sexual, to me, Tim Pool, I think things should be fine. It's when you go into the schools and they're showing all the kids the gay pornos and stuff like that, right?
Putting books like this in the schools that have images in it that children should not be looking at.
It's one image. It's one image on one page. Yeah. You know what's weird? There's an entire section on like, you know, the menstruation and like, you know, experiencing the nightmare and reality of that and all that kind of stuff. I've never seen them bring that part up because again, I think they haven't read it. I think there's just that one photo that they've all seen, which again is a simulated sex act. It's not even like a direct sex act. I'm going to lose my breath screaming about this book. The fact that this is still the one prop. Like when I first bought that genderqueer book, I was expecting this to be a little more controversial. I'll be honest with you. For the amount of fucking outrage and anger that every single one of them talks about it, like Tulsi Gabbard brought it up as if it was the fucking, it was like the most hardcore like fucking snuff film she'd ever seen or something like that. She was just going off about it. Like, can you believe the things that they show children? Sexual acts that none have even dreamt of. Acts that are demonic in nature. They require you to defy the laws of physics to achieve connect. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've read it. Jesus.
Now, if a parent decides it's right for their kids and they want to, well, then there's some questions because it's not always so easy. Parents should not be showing their kids outright pornographic materials, but there is a question of what is appropriate sex ed for kids. And you know what? I defer to parents in a lot of ways. And that means in some circumstances, don't get me wrong, the school might want to have a sex ed thing talking about LGBT stuff. I got no issue as long as the parents know and there's a line that's not being crossed. Putting these books in schools without telling parents, that's the line.
The Bible is way worse, infinitely worse. I've read the parts of the Bible that have the straight up like, okay, so all of you are descendants of incest. No, we got this one story, you know, with Lot, and why don't you, the daughters, get the father wasted, and then get the father wasted so the father could impregnate you. So then, yeah, so you rape the dad once he's drunk. Okay, good. Now you've been raped, so you got the rape. Like, and you're just like, what the fuck is this shit? What? Well, it's a parable, you see. Obviously, these speak to the conditions of mankind. It's like, no, this is just some weird ass shit.
The open cases involved CPS-affiliated adults exposing students to pornographic images. Isn't that funny? The report applauded the OIG's SAU's ability to manage its extraordinarily high case volume without compromising the quality of its investigations. Isn't it funny that they're outright saying what we've been calling out as grooming? There are other stories.
No, they're calling out grooming as grooming. That's what that was talking about. This whole thing is actual grooming. Right now you're pulling up stories of actual grooming and being like, told you so, and it's actually disproving your point. None of the shit that you've ever highlighted or the libs of TikTok shit where like, I let my kids pick pronouns off the wall. Most pick she, her, he, him, but some pick they, them. That you realize that's different than raping kids, right? The two things, different things can be different. Like, a dude wearing a wig, reading a book to kids is different than him trying to have sex with them. Those are two completely different things.
Like this one from December 1st. Oklahoma principal pastor groomed and assaulted male students. Federal lawsuit. Cody Barlow, 33, is alleged to have groomed male students before abusing them. It happens a lot. I want to throw it to our good friend James Lindsay because he points out exactly.
Your good friend James Lindsay is also best friends with Nikki Klein, one of the head members of the NXIVM cult. You know, the one where the leader has been arrested for child rape, as well as trafficking, branding women, all that kind of shit. Like, what the fuck, my dude? We now must defer to James Lindsay, expert on this.
Exactly what's going on with the grooming. This is something you need to understand. James Lindsay says, why expose so many kids to drag in schools? To stimulate their, quote, queer imagination. That's what it says. The playful practice of queer imagination in early childhood. He says, well, this looks so interesting. Drag Queen, quote, Drag Queen Story Hour provides a generative extension of queer pedagogy into the world of early childhood education. Pedagogy. Generative equals Frere, by the way. As I've been saying, the drag queens are about creating generative themes in education. Quite literally, they admit to grooming. He says, wow, the point of Drag Queen Story Hour in schools, according to the first paragraph of this fascinating paper, is to bring reading each other to filth to early childhood education, to bring queer knowing and being.
0 Hour here says, my daughter is 13. In the last 6 months, she's changed her name 3 times, and also what she's into. I call her whatever she decides she wants to be called at the moment, and respect her sexuality by Tim Pool's definition, apparently grooming by respecting her. Like, it seems by Tim Pool's definition, even if you're like affirming, even if you're like, I respect your gender, that's like, oh, well, you can't do that. You've just groomed your own child. It's like, wait, what? It's not at all what I was trying to do. I was trying to not be an asshole, not be a shitty parent. I just wanted to bring up something else that Tim Pool posted the other day. So Tim Pool posted this the other day, and it's like, seriously, study claims trans patients unhappy with their new bodies. And you're like, oh, what's going on? Okay, so first off, sharing the WND, which is a well-known conspiracy theory website. Wild that Tim Pool's like this far gone now. But seriously, study claims trans parents unhappy with their new bodies are transphobic. I can hardly look at myself in the mirror. When I'm naked, my confidence is almost zero. My God. A new study out of the Netherlands claimed internalized transphobia caused transgender patients mental health issues and argued that dissatisfaction with medical procedures was a result of outside pressure to conform to gender stereotypes. And again, it's one of the things where you hear that and it sounds also scary, and it's a new study, and God, okay, so, oh good, you've linked to it, let's see. And then I got to reading, because it's a very short study. I think it was only like 7 pages. Now, immediately what caught my eye was that this was a qualitative study, not a quantitative study. See, a quantitative study, what you're doing in those is that you're taking in a whole bunch of data, and then you use that data to try and find if there are causations or correlations between data sets. Once you find those, you want to eliminate, again, because you don't want the correlation to equal causation, other potential factors that could be causing it. So you may hold another study. So say you've got a whole bunch of things that show, hey, in this area of study, say adults who are smokers, hardcore smokers, it seems like there's a percentage of them versus the population that aren't hardcore smokers that are experiencing lung cancer. So we can say that there could be a causation there, but we want to eliminate the correlation. So in order to do that, we'll look at external factors as well. Were people living in areas that had very bad air? Were people living in areas that had very bad, health care? Were people living in, and then you start to work it down until you can weed out the possible correlations until you get down to the causation, and then boom, you've done a quantitative study. A qualitative study is different. That's what this is. A qualitative study is trying to get to know a subject better. And so you interview a very small selection of people about a handful of specific things to grow your knowledge over that topic. So it could be very personal. It can be more in depth. You can have people who come along and tell you a whole bunch of stuff and information about them because they're willing to do that. And then you can use that to be able to then decide and determine if you want to have quantitative studies to be able to prove whether or not this happens, broadly speaking, to the populace en large. So that's the two differences between the two. And the reason that's very important is if all you hear is the headline, a study, you're not going to know what it means when they say that. Is that study a definitive study that has proven something? As in, again, we now know based on X that this does Y. And again, in this one, the whole study is about coping strategies that is used by trans individuals in response to stressors. And yes, as you probably are not surprised, the largest stressor that seems to keep popping up amongst all the individuals when polled is societal pressure, which of course, yes, we all know. We have ingrained transphobia. We all do. We have programmed transphobia. We all do. We're all trying to unlearn this shit. This is part of the process, but it's what we're all working on. And to take this kind of again, qualitative study, use it to do a fucking headline like this is so disingenuous. Like it's just wretched, and it sucks because again, when it comes to pushing back against this, you got to push back against the fucking Tim Pools who are so quick to retweet and boom and not have to think about it. Just walk away. It's like, well, I mean, according to this study, trans patients are unhappy with their new bodies, and if they aren't, they're transphobic, according to the doctors now. That's how wild things have gotten.
To young children, ideas don't exist to them. That 13-year-old kid, he never heard of your heroes, John Locke. Who's that? Certainly knows who Marx is, though, because you won't speak up. That's how they win.
I didn't know that was a big problem for Tim. Didn't know he was a huge John Locke fella. Everyone knows about Marx, though, you know. When I talk to, people, they're all like, I know everything about Karl Marx, every detail, yeah.
10 years, that kid's going to be voting. And he's going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to say, dude, don't you know anything? No, I've never even heard of these people. And it's because 10 years prior, you wouldn't speak up. And that's what they want. This is why they'll get you fired for simply even just following somebody. The Post-Millennial reports. On Friday, the video game company Limited Run Games fired their community manager, Carol.
It is so weird that you're peppering these stories in between your story about children being systematically groomed and raped in school systems. Like, that's just so bizarre. Like, this is the fucking filler?
That's interesting. What did Carolyn do? She followed some people? I follow leftists and people on the right. It's a cult. This is the point. They don't want you following them because you learn. They don't want anyone to hear what you have to say.
He's gone so far off the deep end. I genuinely mean that, by the way. If you talk to people who are either Tim's family or used to work with him or stuff like that, like, he's gone so far into the super ego, like, I'm so successful, I am so rich. Like, when you listen to that, either the Lisa Poole video or listen to, Adam Krigler talk about Tim, it's like, yeah, he never used to always be like, we need to stockpile all the guns and I'm so rich and I'm so famous. They're coming for me. They're going to get me because, the Matrix and all this kind of stuff.
Because they are grooming kids, politically and sexually.
Grooming them politically. Ah, I see. So as long as we expand the definition, we can keep just muddying the waters, right? As long as we separate or add new terms or add new definitions. So by grooming, you can also groom them politically into your political ideology, yes. And you could also be sexually trying to groom them. I won't let you know which one. I mean, as long as we just broaden the scale, then when people hear that, they can think like, oh, yes. So you're talking about pedos? Well, I mean, maybe, but the other one. Oh, okay. So, yeah.
If you don't speak up now, the children will grow up and they'll have nothing. They will believe nothing. James Lindsay posts this image. A Twitter user who said, if you support women and queer liberation, you must also support children liberation, not to deny it. Because many of these people are outright pedos. And
he got so intense. Tim going on the full like LGBTQ plus crusade. It's a little bit funny just because at the end of the day, like, he's such a wang, like, he's such a wiener. He's like, it's hard to take him seriously as the evil fucking far right, I'm gonna come after the queers kind of person, because it's Tim Pool's Beanie Man. But I mean, at the same time, this is incredibly dangerous. It's dangerous what he's doing, and he's got such a massive platform to do it.
Using this to their advantage. But they're just basically trying to destroy the system. It's a chaotic force. There's no good that comes of this. If our structures collapse, it's not white males. There are many people of various backgrounds who've contributed to the success of this country. And it's silly, because if you look at Japan, certainly not males, and China, for instance, yet they have a massive impact on the world and technology as well. What a silly prospect. Straight white males. It's not all bad news, my friends. I implore you to speak up, to make sure that young people are hearing your ideas, same as they're hearing any other idea. But we have this from the post-millennial as well.
I'm sorry, wait, did you think China and Japan are matriarchies? Well, what are you seeing?
11 states move to criminalize child sex change treatments under newly proposed laws. Republican state lawmakers are seeking to ban gender-affirming care for youth due to the...
That was gibberish. Can we go back? I'm like, I don't know if I misheard him, or like when he brought up Japan, I was like, well, he's going down the same thing that most of the alt-right does, where it's like, well, Japan seems to get things done. And it's like, what are you trying to reference, that they're like a pure ethno-state or something?
Many of these people are outright pedos. And they're using this to their advantage. But they're just basically trying to destroy the system. It's a chaotic force. There's no good that comes of this. If our structures collapse, it's not white males. There are many people of various backgrounds who've contributed to the success of this country. And it's silly, because if you look at Japan, certainly not males, and China, for instance, yet they have a massive impact on the world and technology as well. What a silly...
Okay, I think he meant to say white people, because then that statement makes a lot more sense, I think he meant to say white people, but he said males instead, and he got mixed up there. Because otherwise, I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. If he thinks Japan and China are matriarchies or something.
Prospect. Straight white males. It's not all bad news, my friends. I implore you to speak up, to make sure that young people are hearing your ideas, same as they're hearing any other idea. But we have this from the post-millennial as well. 11 states move to criminalize child sex change treatments under newly proposed laws. Republican state lawmakers are seeking to ban gender-affirming care for youth due to the complete lack of quality evidence to support it, the irreversible nature of the interventions, and the sharply rising...
The complete lack of medical evidence. I mean, we're again talking about every major medical association in the United States. Every single one. They all agree. All of them. You do have the occasional, like, I remember when like Alabama and Arkansas were like, oh no, we have our own doctors, and then it's like, oh, can we see their work? It's like, no.
Rising rates of detransition. Oh, I love you post-millennial guys, because they always have clips where you can clearly see it's the Timcast IRL studio. Hey, that's where I'm at right now. Super cool. More than 20...
What a surprise.
They don't know who they are. They don't know what to believe. Ideas aren't being given to them. For every kid who doesn't know their own gender because they're confused, I want you to remember that you, those of you who didn't speak up, said nothing. These kids need guidance. They need a culture and a community.
He keeps doing calls to action, by the way. And that's the part of this that's getting scary. He keeps trying to use basically propaganda and anger to inflame people, to be like, you have to do something about this. You have to speak out. You have to get involved. You have to take action. You have to go after these groomers, these groomers, these groomers. Here's a whole bunch of people who were groomed. Look at these children getting groomed. By the way, totally unrelated, but I'm going to talk about queer stuff now. Now we're going to talk about LGBTQ+. We're going to talk about trans people, gay people, blah, blah, blah. Now let's get back to the groomers. Let's circle back. Groomers, real groomers. What are you? Are you scared? Did you speak out?
If people who are saying this is not, they're not getting it because you're scared. Don't be scared. I don't know what else to say. But the pushback is here, along with the banning of these laws. People are speaking up. From the College Fix. Professor advises students to report scholars who bash white people or Christians to DEI office. I have said this for years. Yes, do this. If you work at a job and they come up to you and they're like, white people are bad, say, hey, that's racist. Go to the HR and say they were making racist comments. And if they say, what were the racist comments? Be like, I will not repeat them. Remember the Netflix guy?
No, I can't say that again. Don't make me think of it. You don't know what happened. All right. I'm going to be very clear here. I don't think you should be making fun of people for the color of their skin. It's not becoming, it's low-hanging fruit, and it does not matter who you're making fun of based on the color of their skin. Don't do it, all right? You're better than that, and honestly, it's going to make you look more like the fool than the person with whom you are trying to beef. That being said, white people are not oppressed for their race in the same way that black people, visibly indigenous people, Latin people are. So, in the workplace, yes, there is a difference between white racism, the whitest of all racisms, and racism towards people who are actively racially oppressed. That's the big difference between those two things. So yeah, don't walk up to white people and be like, hey, white boy, you're looking awfully mayonnaise-y today. Lick, lick. No, don't do that. That's, not becoming. Not a good thing to do. All that being said, to think that this is like the cause, for Tim Pool to get this excited, to be like, hell yes, I've been waiting for someone to take this seriously. Finally, someone's taking a stance. Let's stop this white racism. This is our cause, He was explaining what words were offensive, so they fired him. He didn't call anybody a name. He just said, here's a list of words that are offensive. He was forced into HR, and they said, what did you do? And he was explaining these words were offensive. What words? These ones. He said them. Fired. So you at your job and someone says white people, Christians, immediately go to HR and say, Jane Doe, she was saying a whole bunch of racist stuff and I want it taken care of now. If they try and use the DEI woke garbage, call them out. Now, some people have said, yeah, but the HR department won't listen. Yeah, they will. The whole reason they're doing this is because they're scared of liability. They're scared of being sued. You go to them. Again, you wanted to pepper this in the story? Again, so I thought he skipped it over. I was wrong. But at the very start, we have the story, the true story of children being groomed and raped. And then fill it with all of the stories, LGBTQ+, trans, gay, James Lindsay, and now the white racism plight that none of us were truly aware, and then circle back near the end, right back to the kid rape.
It's not racist when we rag on people based on race. That's what they think. So make them. Put up or shut up. He goes,
you understand why different things can be different, though, right? Like, at the end of the day, the universal rules that apply, broadly speaking, should apply, but they don't. Like, it's very easy to say no one should be racist. Absolutely, no one should be racist. That's different than different people are oppressed for different categories or different things. Those are very, like, again, don't insult people based upon intrinsic characteristics. It's low-hanging fruit. It's shitty behavior. And if they happen to be people who are marginalized or oppressed for that race, well then yes, you've added racism to the mix. So yeah, don't do those things. But like, we're also mature enough to recognize why different things are different. I would hope,
I was going to say, he told the Fix it would force the DEI office to investigate one of their own. What's more, he added, the professor who loves critical race theory and explaining how white people are the worst, it's going to make them think twice. That's right. If they have been through a 7-month ordeal with the DEI office. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it creates a paper trail. You force the DEI office into establishing a track record. If they find in favor of a black student or Hindu student, but then come to a male and say, I don't like how my professor talks about toxic masculinity, they are finding no fault. It exposes the bias at the heart of the DEI agenda that we can really only infer at this point. The paper trail gives you legal grounds. When this guy of this race said X, they said Y. When this guy of this race said X, they said Y. When I did it, they said Z. You can't do that. That doesn't mean you'll always win. These battles are not so easy. But you need to speak up lest we see more of this horrifying news about what's happening to kids. If you stand by and say nothing, just know there'll be more kids who are groomed and abused. In 10 years, those kids will vote. Many of them having been sterilized or their lives ruined. I hope.
Oh my God. We're like, okay, fine. Steven Crowder's not too active right now. His empire's in shambles, and he's trying to transfer the Mug Club over from the Blaze, who he got either let go or fired from. No one knows and no one cares. I love it. But even Steven Crowder, if he was as active as he was today, probably wouldn't be pushing as intense shit as Tim Pool. I don't know what got under the beanie where all of a sudden he's decided, I need to ramp this shit up. Maybe it's having the rotating cast of fucking like white supremacists around him all the time. Like if you're hanging out with like John Doyle and Nick Fuentes and Milo and Ye and all this kind of stuff, and fucking the rest of the clown shoes associated, Jack Pacepic. Oh, it's Jack Pacepic again. And you know, the cameras are off and you sit down. I imagine Jack Pacepic's not going to be like, so Tim, yes, Jack, what are your thoughts on LGBTQ plus? I don't really know, Jack. What are yours? Well, I do have some ideas. Would you like to hear them? Can we talk about this for a little bit?
You understand what your silence.
Yeah, now he's straight up on a warpath. Now he's straight up like, these are the videos, by the way, these aren't the ones done with the rest of his crew where they're riffing on each other. Sometimes you might get pushback, sometimes you might get accelerationism, whatever it is. This is just the Tim show, you know? This is the Tim Pool original channel, 1.33 million subscribers. This 6 days ago already has 400,000 views. 400,000 views. That's 400,000 people, 26,000 who felt that this was an appropriate thumbs up, who are now going to see this messaging that is like, all right, so Tim Pool is showing real acts of pedophilia, real acts of grooming done by almost entirely straight cis people, but he's not going to mention that part, but this is real acts of pedophilia and grooming. Now he's going to be talking about queer issues. And now, again, here's the story of the actual pedophiles and the groomers, and then queer issues, more of the story of the pedophiles and the groomers. And now, what do you think? I mean, I think you need to speak up, take action, do something about it.
Means your silence isn't violence. That's stupid. Said it in a different segment. I'll be more logical. Your silence is their ability to take over. Your silence is you retreating from the battlefield and saying to them, by all means, win the culture war. That simple. We don't need to storm capitals. That's stupid. We don't even need massive protests. We just need people to say no. I did it. Look where it got me. I worked for Fusion. They said, just side with the audience. I said no. They said, all right, well, here's some money. Now will you say it? I said, no. They give me a big bonus. Then I said, is my contract up? Can I go home now? Finally, the contract ended and I said, bye. I would rather be unemployed, worrying about, you know what? I guess I'm going to work at a movie theater or a comic shop, but I'll figure it out. You know, I'm reminded of Malcolm in the Middle. It's a great show. There's a really funny bit they did where there's, I think it was Reese. If you've seen Malcolm in the Middle, there's three brothers. I don't remember the older brother's name, but Reese and Malcolm. And this teacher has got it out for Reese, the one of the older kids, second oldest, and just ruining his life. And then she basically says to him, you know, I'm not going to let you do this. And he goes, if you try and stop me, I will ruin your gifted son's life. And she goes, I don't care. Malcolm's smart. He doesn't need help. Reese is the one who needs help. So I'm going to do everything I can for him. And the guy's like, oh. And he's like, you wouldn't sacrifice your own child. And just then the oldest brother's banging on the window in a storm, like, let me in. I don't want to be asked. And then she laughs. Great show. It was really funny. But anyway, I'm reminded of this. So my point is, it feels to me like the school system is that. They're saying you would never risk your life or yourself for anyone else. And you know what's unfortunate is that in a lot of ways, they're right. And because people aren't speaking up, they're abusing your kids. Your kids are being abused in schools. They're being groomed. They are being assaulted. They're being given explicit materials. And the Democrats are trying to help them keep doing more.
So the first couple ones are, you know, there's truth in the fact that there is a lot of both physical and sexual abuse that takes place within the school system. It needs to be exposed and it needs to be talked about. It is done by almost entirely straight cis people. That's the part of the story that Tim hasn't brought up once. If you look at any of the data and statistics in terms of sexual abuse, even if it's done by you know, women teachers towards male students, it is done by straight cis women who are abusing young boys and sexually molesting young boys. What he's trying to do here is, of course, the same thing that most far-right anti-LGBTQ extremists are doing. Tim is also adding a lot of calls to action in this one. There was a lot of like, your silence. I mean, you have to do something about this. Speak out. Say something. My skater buddies are all like, I don't want to get political because I'll get in trouble. And I was like, no, you got to. You got to talk about the groomers, blah, 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 all this kind of shit. It's really, really fucked up he's gone this far. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.